Welcome back to Odetta Unedited, and today we're answering a question from Miss Vivian. And usually I don't state who the questions are coming from or who the requests are coming from, but Vivian, this one is really on point, and it came as a result of Vivian watching this video and commenting down the video. And I made some notes here, rockstars, because when you get to the stage of premenopause and you have menopause brain, you forget everything. So the comment that Vivian wrote, and I'm going to pop it up here on screen, says, please record a video about why you chose Jamaica with all your experiences and travel. Let us know why home is here for you. Now, for those who don't know, I am Jamaican. I've lived in Jamaica all my life, even though I've worked for US companies my entire career that took me all over the globe and had me possibly spending more time abroad than here. I never moved, never relocated. I traveled and I came back right home every time. This video is not about judging those who left, especially those who left for better opportunities, because while I would not have made the decision because the opportunities came to me here in Jamaica, and also because I believe that being poor in Jamaica, I'm able to live a better standard of living than earning a few dollars in the US. So I'm always going to choose Jamaica over the US. If I had the right job and the right opportunities, I probably would have packed my bags and migrated as well. But thank God I didn't have to. And even when I had nothing, it would have been a last resort because I really, really love being Jamaican. And I absolutely love living here despite all the things that are happening, whether it's real or propaganda. I don't spend time focused on that. My safety is important to me. My family's safety is important to me. But my experience here is not like what is said in a lot of the media. And it may be because I'm fortunate, although I don't believe in luck. But if you live a good life and a clean life, you can be prone to random criminality. And things can happen to you randomly, but it happens anywhere you live in the world. It's not unique to Jamaica. And my objective is to live a good life. And hopefully I don't become a statistic. If you choose to live a life where you are indulging in criminality, doing unkind things, nobody deserves to die for that. But the probability of you getting caught up is significantly greater, as is the case in any other country. So while crime and violence is a major issue here, I think for the most part we can avoid it. It does happen randomly. Some persons get caught up in it that's not associated with anything, but it's as random as it is anywhere else, in my opinion. Anyway, now before Vivian asked the question, I have thought about why I chose Jamaica, but not extensively. So I made a few notes. And just to give you the backstory, I have had a career where I became a vice president in a US Fortune 500 company at age 25. And in this capacity, I was in charge of the largest single client in the company, which is United Healthcare, and then later on MetLife. And I'm sure most of you listening are familiar with those two companies. The company that I started to work with was ACS. Well, it was MRS, then it was acquired by ACS, and then it was acquired by Xerox, and I left when it was Xerox and I went to another US company. Now, in my career, I've had anywhere from 1,200 employees reporting up to me. As a VP, I had directors and there were managers, there were team leaders. So they didn't report directly to me because, there are layers, but they were within my span of control to as much as 6,000, which is where I left the last company at. When I had, back in the day, 1,800 employees and I was in charge of United Healthcare. United Healthcare was in Ghana, Africa, Santo Domingo, Jamaica, in several places in the US to include Salt Lake City, Utah, San Antonio, Texas, Portland, Oregon, Dallas, Kingston, New York. And later, when I was in charge of MetLife, it was in Juarez, Mexico, Mexico City, several places in the US, other than the ones I just mentioned. India, Philippines, and Colombia. And guess what happens? When you have staff members in multiple countries, you have to visit those countries because you are not a straw boss that's going to try to manage people without meeting them and at least getting to know them. So you show that you value them and you're going to put their needs first. you want to meet these people, you want to interact with your team, and you want to make sure they know that you're there for you, or I'm there for them, I should say. So I was mandated to travel in some cases, and in other cases I would travel just to show support. And I did this for about 20 years of my career. And yes, I would go to New York. As an example, upstate New York, I would leave Montego Bay, fly into JFK on a Monday, drive upstate in a rental car. And I talk a lot about this in my book, No Regrets, Just Lessons. And then I would work and come back on Friday to be with my son and my family. But it did take a toll on me. And after a while, I just didn't want to travel anymore. The point, though, is that when I became a vice president, I was offered an opportunity to relocate to the United States. And I thought about it, I declined it, and I'm going to tell you why later on. And later, I thought about if I were to relocate, maybe I would go to Ghana, Africa. Because when I went to Ghana, I realized the people, they looked like Jamaicans, they operated like Jamaicans. And it is said that the slaves that came to Jamaica came from that part of Africa. So it may be why there's so many similarities, but I could have seen myself living there. But I'm also going to tell you the reason later on why I didn't choose to live there or the US or the other places that I had an opportunity to relocate to. Later in my career, I got another opportunity to be promoted to a regional VP, and this would take my career to a completely new level. But I had to relocate. It was actually required for me to not just be able to work legally, because I'm able to work legally in the US. So I could have lived anywhere, but I chose to decline this regional VP position. And the reason I declined was because I wanted to stay home. Now, I've listed the reasons here because I know I would forget all of them. Because, like I said, before Vivian asked this question, you know you chose Jamaica, but you haven't really penciled down all the reasons other than the obvious one, which was to be with my son and my family. But I'm going to tell you some others here. Now, the first one is I prefer to live where my race, meaning my dark skin, is the skin color that is most predominant. Now, I was exposed to racism in the US. I was actually in Maine at a client visit, and I won't go into details here because I don't highlight negativity. I believe the more you talk about it, the more you attract it to your life. So just imagine racism in Maine. It wasn't good. And I was in my early 20s. And in that moment, it made me realize that I just didn't want to have to live my life working to prove myself or to prove my worth or my value because of the color of my skin, because I know it would make it 10 times harder. And don't get me wrong, I admire the people who take on this challenge, but if I can avoid it, why am I going to make my life 10 times harder by dealing with racism? I was in a classroom at Mount Alvernia High School where a Caucasian sat before me, a Chinese sat beside me, Indians were in the class, many different races. And I had no clue until I got to America in Maine what racism was. Yes, there's classism here, but everything is what you make it. I don't focus, like I say, on negativity. You can call it classism. I just call it somebody being unkind. And I don't process it as anything but that. And it allows me to deal with it better. Maybe I'm brainwashing myself. Who's to tell? I don't care. I just don't like focusing on the negative thing. And I want to say, okay, they were just unkind, and I move on. So going back to what I was saying, in Jamaica, my race, which is Black, is the predominant race. So in terms of equity, for the most part, this is how I was able to, at age 21, 22, get promoted to manager with very little experience and become a VP in a Fortune 500 company that was based in Jamaica, although it was a US company, because I didn't have to be competing with different color skins, because most people in the company looked like me. And yes, there were a lot of expatriates, but as the Jamaicans who were aspiring to achieve growth and success, many people look like me. So when I'm living in a nation with most persons having dark skin, one, it reduces the possibility of racism. I don't have to worry about my son being pulled over and being accosted like I see on TV. I don't have to worry about somebody being unkind to me just because of the color of my skin. They may have been unkind because I was poor, and I have no regrets. If they were, that's their problem. But I didn't want to have to deal with that. So staying in Jamaica gave me the advantage of competing or experiencing some amount of equality when it comes to opportunities. The second reason that I have listed is the standard of living and the quality of life. I think I would have stayed in Jamaica even if I wasn't successful. I enjoyed living here when I was younger. And for those who don't know, I grew up in very, very humble beginnings, like I shared here on the channel and elsewhere. In the country where I grew up, I remember as a child eating fruits and vegetables from any tree we could find in the community, from our neighbors, from friends, from even our enemies' trees, or I shouldn't call them enemies, but people that our family didn't get along as well with for whatever reason. We had the beaches that we could go to relax. And there's still a lot of free beaches in Jamaica, despite what the media may want you to think. So for me, the quality of life with little money is 10 times better than the quality of the life that I would live in the US with a few dollars. And I look at my co-workers as an example. Many of them earned similar money to what I made. And these are my US co-workers when I worked for a US company. And when they, would occasionally see where I lived, how I lived here, they were always, in awe that we're making the same kind of money, but I can live so much better because the dollar stretches a lot further here. Unfortunately, it's because our dollar has very little value, but you know what? If it works to the advantage, we're going to leverage it. Jamaica offers relaxation. It offers a culture that's not as fast-paced as America. The lifestyle to me, the fact that, relationships are better with your neighbors. We have beautiful weather all year round, although I love it when it's overcast. But some people can't deal with overcast for too long, so they want sunny weather. And yes, we have crime, but like I said earlier, crime is everywhere. At least we don't have people going into our schools and shooting our innocent children. So it's bad, but it's not. It could be worse. Let's just leave it there. The weather. I hate the cold, rock stars, and I don't hate a lot of things, but I don't like cold. I remember being in upstate New York, getting ready to go to work, parking the rental car overnight. And in the morning, I'm there cleaning off the freezing or frozen snow off the windscreen, and tears started to run down my eyes because it was severely or significantly below 0 degree weather. It was very cold. And the tears started to freeze on my face. And I'm saying, dear Jesus, we were not born for this. You know that I believe that this is why the first set of humans to be on this earth were in Africa, where it was nice and warm for the most part. Because I don't think any human beings, even Caucasians, weren't born for this kind of rigid cold. It's not right. And I would never choose to live in the cold unless life really, I can't add enough really bad. And rock stars, well, I call you rock stars because that's what I call my subscribers on my other channels. So anyway, my Odetta Unedited family, I have to give you guys a new name over here because we're talking about different things over here. In Jamaica, the weather is almost the same all year round. I often think that if we were to end up in an end-of-life situation, Jamaica is where I would want to be. Because think about, there's no more electricity, there's no more water. We have to go back to a time before technology, and trying to start a fire in winter to cook some food, it's not going to happen. But in Jamaica, land of wood and water, if you are trapped here in an end-of-world, not end-of-life, but end-of-world situation, you're going to be okay. Because we'll be able to have enough greenery to restart life And probably we won't go back to that level that we left it, but that's good enough. Wherever we'd be able to, the fact that we'd be able to survive. Now, my support system was also here in Jamaica. I had a strong, I grew up with my extended family. I had a son, so I wanted to stay where my support system was. And because of how, they say the village actually, what is it? The village rules the child. I can't remember the quote, but you can put it in the comment if you remember it. But the village actually raised me, and they did give me a good whopping whenever I disrespected anyone without my parents' permission or my mother's permission, and I was fine with that. And having that kind of support system, when you think about how isolated people tend to become when they live overseas, especially in the US, when I spent extended periods there, I just didn't want to do that. Another one is I have thought about living in Ghana. And of all the places in the US that I probably would live is Miami, because it's close to Jamaica and because the weather is tolerable. But when I thought about living in Miami, then I thought about the other things I just mentioned. And for Ghana, I thought about political stability, economic stability, because despite how bad things seem in Jamaica, we have relatively good democracy and a relatively stable economy. Things not cheap, and it could be better, but compared to the rest of the world, we're not going to war, we're not having coups, people are not being overthrown, you're not having to worry about political instability or economic instability. So that's another reason why I didn't relocate to Ghana, although things seem to be pretty good there, especially now. But back in the day, it was a little bit unpredictable. I also built a life here in Jamaica. At age 25, I built my first house for my family, and I just started to invest in a lot of real estate every opportunity I get. To this day, I'm doing that. And I do invest or explore investing in real estate overseas as well. But most of it is here in Jamaica, so I'm going to stay close to my assets. That's it. Vivian, I hope I did the question or the request justice. And the bottom line is I am Jamaican. I love being Jamaican. And I'm going to keep choosing Jamaica despite what everybody else says. Take care of yourself. It's now 2:00. I'm actually late for my session. We'll talk another time.